Well, good afternoon, good evening, my friends. I am Erica Lukes, and I'm always happy to be here on a pretty hot night in Utah. I want to make sure that I thank everybody for tuning in, and I see all of my friends in chat. Thank you so much for being faithful to the show, for understanding that there are things that we need to talk about, to expose. You can always find me at ufoclassified.com. You can find me on Twitter, it's Erica Lukes UAP. I have definitely, though, will say that I've been kind of pulling back a little teeny bit on social media just because for me, I feel that sometimes we all need to take a break, as I'm sure you can relate to that. I want to thank Mario for being here behind the scenes every week, and he is just such a wonderful person to support my show. I want to thank my Patreons. And I also want to thank Peter, who gets out there on social media and promotes this show. This is a group effort. I rely on all of you to help get the word out about UFO Classified. So make sure you like, subscribe, share. And if you are feeling generous tonight, make sure you go to YouTube and do the super sticker, and I appreciate it. We're like I've been saying, we're trying to get enough money to pay for show costs, and then above and beyond that to help with the archive. And speaking of, I have some very exciting news this evening. So I would like to welcome Jack Brewer, who has been frequent on UFO Classified, and I really appreciate all of his work. Jack is author of The Graves Have Been Framed, and he also has done excellent work. And you can go to Amazon.com to find his latest book about NICAP. And so, Jack, just really quickly summarize all of the work that you've done on your latest book.
Oh, goodness. The latest book is Wayward Sons, NICAP in the IC, and it involved a great deal of Freedom of Information Act work and obtaining archived materials from Barry Greenwood and looking into how NICAP developed and its interactions and overlapping with the intelligence community.
And
And
that
thank you for having me,
Well,
Erica.
absolutely. It's so much fun to have you. And we're going to have a wonderful show this evening, thanks to you and thanks to our guest, Emma Woods, who will be on here in a moment. And I want to just say, hey, Sean and Scott and What the UFO and Mystico and Amy, all of you, Steve's Aquatics, Gracie, Lord Ludacris, Doug Ellis, Phil, how's it going? I know you're not staying out of trouble. Jim, thanks for staying up to the wee hours of the morning. Universal Principal, UFO John Doe, and Jay Bench. I've got to make sure I'm mentioning all of you. Shadowy Spectrums, of course, but thank you. And then um, hang on, UFO John Doe. Thank you. You guys are, we are a team here. And I feel really grateful that we have such a cohesive group of people who care about the subject. Not only do we care about the subject, but we care about witnesses who have seen things. We care about preserving the history, and we are going to make sure that we do everything to push kind of a really incredible thing forward. I will say that, Jack, and I want to talk a little bit about this before we make our big announcement that I kind of let out of the bag last week. But, this has been an eventful week in the world of ufology. There are more people coming out about some of the characters who have been trying to work behind the scenes to promote a cult-like mentality, and then to use people, and in my opinion, a lot of the time unknowingly, to act like a hit squad for other researchers in the field. And we've seen, some a great article by UAPX, which I think was really well done, talking about Lou Elizondo and some of the things that he has experienced. And so, what are your thoughts about the current goings-ons in the UFO world?
I haven't delved deeply into it, Erica. I can say though that my general feeling about it is that a lot of personality and arguments are used by the higher profile people in order to obstruct the fact that they haven't delivered on the things that they promised what's been 5 years ago now that they were going to bring to the party. And I mean, there's one surefire way to quiet your detractors, and that's present evidence, and that's just not happening. To the extent that I often don't look closely anymore at the arguments going on, because it almost seems like a technique to stay relevant and to stay trending on social media and things like that. It's almost mutually beneficial for the different people that are arguing together.
Right. Absolutely. And so it is interesting because like I said, you and I both know and we've met a lot of amazing people, and I see, my friend Ted Rowe, who is in here tonight from Alaska, and I want to just give him a shout out and all of the work that he's done for NARCAP and say defamedologist. You're right. McGowan's three-part series really did help change what's happening in the UFO world. And I believe that there are so many people that I know that have done decades of work and they deserve to be supported. And I really think that this is a pivotal time where we all can change the course of the subject. And so this is really, I don't know, I'm feeling very positive. So anyway, thank you. And hey, Matthew Riot. So here's our exciting news. For the evening, for the rest of my life, I would like to formally announce Expanding Frontiers Research, which is a non-profit that we have just established that is committed to facilitating sharing of information and similar resources that effectively embody the best research practices. Our organization takes a multi-tiered approach to providing the public reliable information on a broad and diverse range of topics. Jack and I have been talking about some great things that we are planning to do, which will really set our organization apart above and beyond some of the other organizations that have been looking at things kind of in a narrow perspective. I really think this is going to be amazing. You can go to our website, which just went live today, and so we will be putting more and more out there. But just so you know, it is expandingfrontiersresearch.org. I'm very excited about this. You can donate there, and then you can get a tax write off. But we will be working with researchers from all over the world to hopefully collect and preserve their archives, and then also the research, put that out to the public, and then also empower women in the world of ufology to go out and do in-depth interviews with people that have an interesting slice of life and important information about specific things that we don't seem to get when we're focusing our lens just on UFOs. So to me, this is going to be absolutely off the hook. I'm looking forward to including reaching out to several other people, many other people, not only in my community, but also in the world of UFOs and academia. This is so cool. So anyway, I'm really excited about this. So anyway, congratulations, Jack. I would like to also thank Barry Greenwood, who was also involved with this, and there will be many more as we go along. So Jack, would you be as kind as to introduce, since you have done a lot of work, can you introduce our guest this evening?
Sure. Emma Woods came on the scene. I first heard about her, I guess, around 2009, 2010, because of the work of Kim Carlsberg and Jeff Ritzmann and Jeremy Vaeni. And Emma considers herself a lifelong experiencer. She is now an author as well. And welcome to the show, Emma.
Hi, thank you.
Yeah,
Your
and
project sounds
thank you.
amazing.
So thank you, Emma, for being here. This is, I know that this is going to be a really exciting conversation, and I applaud you for your bravery to come out and speak with people. I think that's really amazing. So Jack, let's get started with some questions.
Sure. Emma, her new book is Glimpses of Magonia, and you consider yourself a lifelong experiencer. Could you maybe summarize that for us for starters, please?
Yeah, I've had anomalous experiences right through my life, back to my earliest memories from when I was a toddler. And in my 30s, I discovered that it was actually something that's in our family, that my father told me that he'd also had experiences all through his life. And he said that his mother also had experiences. And I interviewed some other family members around that time who also said the same thing. So I don't know whether it's something that runs in families, but it certainly is in my family, and on both sides, my mother and my father's side. And then in my late 30s, I read a magazine article about indicators that you're being abducted by aliens. And I was really surprised that a lot of those indicators were things that I had experienced. And then I just sort of thought about it on the background for a couple of years. And then sort of things came to a point for me where I sort of realized that I was actually going to have to face my experiences, because I had been sort of pushing them out, suppressing them basically as a way to deal with them. And then, so then I just decided to basically approach the UFO field, just as sort of a way to try and understand what was happening. And that's pretty much how I made it to ufology. Yeah.
Do you recall the author of the article you read?
No, it was just in a woman's magazine. I cut it out and I had it in my diary for a couple of years, but I don't have it anymore. Yeah.
Because, of course, people that are familiar with my blog and the books I write, and Emma is aware too, that I tend to think that many people get influenced and led to believe that they are having that whatever things they're experiencing, I think they get influenced to put those in a context of alleged alien abduction, is why I kind of wondered, because I think any of us that follow this have seen these articles around about if you crave salt, or if you misplaced your shoes or something, you're a potential alien abductee. So I kind of wondered about that, but I don't want to minimize someone's experiences. I wasn't there. I don't know what happened, but we just kind of might as well get that out of the way, that, I do tend to think, especially when it comes to literal aliens, that a lot of leading is taking place, which, as Emma knows, is how I got interested in her case and why I wrote about it in The Grays Have Been Framed. So you first began interacting with David Jacobs then about 2002, correct?
Yeah. My therapist, he wanted because I was seeing a therapist at that point, just about life issues, but I also talked to him about my experiences, and he had a completely neutral take on it. His take was, we don't know what reality is, we don't know what it means. So he was interested, but he didn't come down as a skeptic, and he didn't come down as a believer, which I found really helpful. And he wanted to get some help in how to help me. And he tried talking to his colleagues, and he realized very quickly that was not going to work. So then David Jacobs had a page on his website, and he said that he had like a packet of information that he can send to therapists to help them with their clients. So my therapist contacted Jacobs, and then Jacobs got back to him and sent him some information. And then Jacobs also sent his home phone number and said that I could call him. And that's pretty much how I made contact with Jacobs.
And so when you made contact with Jacobs, how did that roll out? Like, can you describe like what email, and then how quickly did it lead into having conversations with him?
Well, he was, he came across as very helpful. My therapist had suggested that I write a history of my experiences and that I also start recording them as they happened, because I'd had a bit of a crisis point where I was no longer able to keep suppressing it. And he thought that that might help me to sort of deal with it and understand it more. So that's what I'd started doing. And my therapist told Jacobs about that, and Jacobs was interested in that. And then Jacobs talked to me about that. And I think that's why he spoke to me, is because he was interested in the material that I was collecting about my experiences. And he actually asked me to send it to him. So we talked for about 2 years. It was just a few phone calls and emails. And then in late 2003, I decided to do a 1-year, very detailed record of my experiences, because I thought I might see patterns and just get some insights. And he helped me plan that. And he said, well, you should record all your dreams, which I did for a year. And he also said I should take pregnancy tests once a month. And he sent me pregnancy tests from the US to use. And then I did that thing for 1 year. And so he was very helpful with that. And then in December of that year, right at the end, he then suggested that he hypnotize me. So I did that whole 1 year. And then that's when he offered to hypnotize me. And that's when I became his actual research subject. And I had my first hypnosis session with him in late December 2004.
And so what was his reasoning for sending you pregnancy tests?
I think it's because of his theory that there's an alien breeding program, and that female abductees are regularly impregnated, and then the fetus is taken before she realizes that she's pregnant. And I think, well, that was what he said to me. I mean, I have doubts whether he actually believes any of it. And if he doesn't, then I'm not sure what his motive for that would have been. But yeah, anyway, yeah. So I took a pregnancy test on the 15th of every month, and they were all negative.
And that's really fascinating to me. And I want to, if you could describe, because there are people listening who don't understand who David Jacobs is, Dr. David Jacobs. And so if either one of you could give the audience a brief explanation about Dr. Jacobs, that would be wonderful.
In the latter 20th century UFO subculture, the idea of alien abduction really got foothold, really the whole latter half of the century, but especially by the 1990s. There were a couple of really popular authors and speakers. Bud Hopkins was one, and David Jacobs was kind of considered his right hand associate. And then they had a few around them as well that were. It was somewhat of a status symbol among these researchers to be in league with Hopkins and Jacobs. And so David Jacobs was a published author. He was an associate history professor at Temple University, and carried a certain air of authority with him as a doctor of history, and as people like Dr. John Mack took an interest in the field, that elevated the credibility of Hopkins and Jacobs, in spite of the fact that they had no credentials whatsoever in mental health treatment or hypnosis. Would you say that covers it, Emma?
Yeah, I think that's a really good summary. Yes.
And I was wondering if you could. I know we kind of skip ahead with this, but I think something people wonder a lot about, and will wonder as they hear us go through what happened after 2004. How did you come to begin questioning David Jacobs, and why at that point? Like, why not sooner? Why not later? How did you begin to become aware of some of the things? As I recall, you began to even discover things when you went back and listened to the hypnosis sessions that you hadn't been aware of. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah. And when I started having hypnosis, I didn't know it, but I was very hypnotizable. And Jacobs had said to me that I would always be in full control under hypnosis. It wasn't anything to be worried about. And it would just be like a relaxation exercise. But it wasn't. And I'm very hypnotizable. And I lost my critical faculties while I was under hypnosis. And I've always had reasonable critical faculties, and I sort of have always trusted my own critical faculties, and I lost that. And so I became, in a way, someone that I had never been before while I was in that hypnosis period. And I couldn't see what was happening. I couldn't... I just didn't know what was happening. At some point, he also started implanting amnesia blocks in me. So I actually was forgetting a lot of the hypnosis. And years later, when I filed a complaint with Temple University, I actually left out really important things because I didn't know they'd happened until I went back and listened to the tapes. And so that was something I didn't expect at all. But even in that sort of hypnotic fog that I was in, after a while, some things started to, I realized they weren't right. And it was mainly to do with another research subject that he had, and she uses the pseudonym Elizabeth Smith. And Jacobs did most of his hypnosis with me, Elizabeth Smith, and I can't remember her pseudonym now. Brian Reed's mother, anyway. And he did 37 hypnosis sessions with me, 45 with Brian Reed's mother, and he did over 100 with Elizabeth Smith. So it was very intensive, and he was hypnotizing Elizabeth at the same time as me. And something went really wrong with their hypnosis. And some kind of narrative was being built up that her hybrids were threatening him and he was on the run. And then he was having instant message conversations with her hybrids. And he was telling me about all of this and trying to draw me in. And I was then starting to realize that there was something wrong. But normally I would have just immediately just laughed and walked away. But because I was being very intensively hypnotized, I just kind of was caught in this thing. And it took months for me to finally realize that I've got to get out of this. And eventually I got out of it, but it took months before I even started to feel normal again. And then it was only later that I went back and listened to all the tapes. And then I realized a whole lot of things that he'd done. And this was after I filed a complaint with Temple. So I kind of discovered a whole lot of things on the tape that he'd done that I didn't even have any conscious awareness of. So to anybody who says that hypnosis isn't real or you're always in control, it's not true. It really changes how you're conscious, you're awake, you can have a drink, you can, hear a phone ringing if it rings while, whatever. But you're in a very different state. You're hyper focused on what's going on. So his voice is like omnipresent. And you're not thinking, well, I wasn't, you're not thinking critically, you're not assessing. You can hear what he's saying, but there's the critical faculties are just gone. You're just accepting what's coming in. And he really was able to wipe my memory, and things that I really would have wanted to be able to put in my complaint to Temple, I couldn't, because he had literally wiped my memory of it. So I think, people need to think really, really carefully before they have hypnosis. That would be that, yeah. So that's
Absolutely. Wow. And can I just ask, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but when all of this was going on, who was your support system, and what did you share information with them about what was taking place, and how did they react?
Well, what was interesting is that Jacobs himself told me that he was my support person. And so he kept in sort of almost daily email contact with me in between the sessions. I had a session about once every 2 weeks. And then in between, he was just in constant email contact with me, and he was playing the role of my support person. And I think he did it the same with Elizabeth, because he used to go on to instant messenger with her every single day. And I think that's what he did, is that he would hypnotize you, and then he'd kind of like keep you in it in the intervening period until the next session. And he was the support person. So he was my support person. Yeah. I mean, I didn't talk to my family and friends at all about it. There was one person I did talk to a little bit, and I mentioned a little bit to my therapist, but Jacobs was my main support person.
And was there a reason that you didn't feel like you could talk to anybody, your friends or family, about it?
I think it's probably just that I generally didn't talk about my experience with anybody anyway. So it was something that I keep away from my normal sort of social life with people. So I think that was mainly it. It was, I knew, it was part of the life that I don't really share with others. Yeah.
And during this time period, were there other people in the UFO world that kind of crept up and tried to introduce themselves to you?
Well, while I was Jacobs's subject, I wasn't really in the UFO field. I was just communicating with him, and then he put a lot of pressure on me to start communicating with Elizabeth Smith, and I resisted that for a while, but in the end I just sort of gave in and agreed to that. So they were the only people that I was really communicating with. I wasn't really very aware of the UFO field at that point. Yeah.
Okay. And what has happened to her?
She I don't know what happened to her after I ended my association with Jacobs, but I understand. I mean, I did exchange a couple of emails with her. My understanding is that I don't think that she really sees through it, but I think that she understands that there were serious problems with Jacobs. That would be my take on it.
Wow.
And that she had concerns as well.
Okay. And that is so interesting. And just from the little bit, and Carol Rainey, hi, nice to see you in chat. And you are an important person for Emma and Jack as well. So this is really nice to have you here. Thank you for taking the time. But so you were having these experiences, and obviously he was grooming you, handling you, in my opinion, and keeping track of what you were doing every day, and then you were being hypnotized. And tell me one more time, how many times he hypnotized you?
He hypnotized me 37 times, and he did 91 regressions. So sometimes it was one regression, sometimes it was 2, 3, 4 regressions. Yeah.
And how did you feel after each regression or session in hypnotherapy?
Absolutely wiped out, drained. I would usually have to go and sleep or rest, and it took days to get over it. Very psychologically draining, very traumatic a lot of the time. Really took a toll. My mother said that it took me about 2 years for me to sort of come back to the person I was before, and she thinks that I'm still not even completely back to how I was. I mean, it takes quite a toll on you.
Wow. And you were kind enough to share some of your tapes with us so people can actually hear what he was doing and how he was going about this. And I will say that when I listen to some of them, I mean it certainly raised my hackles about things. And I know from my own personal experiences, and I mentioned this on my shows a lot, when you go to UFO conferences, for me, looking back at things, it is alarming to see how many people are, let's wake up at, 6 a.m. and we're all going to go into a conference center, and then all of us who are thinking that we've had a paranormal or an abduction experience, we're going to be led by this person who, I mean, I can't think of anybody in the UFO subject I would actually trust in the UFO community to have any access like that. And to try to, because you can tell that they're leading people and then promoting false narratives that are dangerous, as you know, to people's psyche. It's just not, that's really, it's just amazing. And again, I want to just say thank you for your courage to actually come forward and talk about this. I think this is really timely and important. So thank you.
No, thank you.
Well, before we get to the tapes, I want to just really quickly. I want to say you can go to emmawoodsbooks.com, and then look at this absolutely beautiful website. She's got a portion on David Jacobs' books about, it is a gorgeous website. So make sure that you go there and pick up her book, that we're talking about specifically tonight. But then I wanted to say, 11, who is in chat, just said there was a reality show called Hellier where they hypnotized someone who knew they were going to tell him to have an experience, and that person felt as if he had really been abducted. And so obviously you had experiences that were happening to you before you hooked up with Jacobs, and then how do you feel that those experiences changed when he was trying to frame things for you?
My real experiences, I have a lot of fragmentary memories, and I think that there's a forgetting or an amnesia component to them. But once I started having hypnosis, this whole world just opened up. And he would embed them into my real experiences. So he would start by having me remember my real experience, the beginning of it, and then there would be the whole hypnosis session with a whole lot of stuff woven onto that. And then he'd bring me back at the end to the end of my real experience. So it was woven into real experiences or real dreams. And I think that made it incredibly real, because part of it was real. And yeah, this entire world just opened up, and this whole other life just appeared for me, and that now is part of my life. And for a long time I was really struggling with what to do about that, because I feel like I can't reject it totally, because I feel that there is some truth in it, but I can't accept it because I feel that there's a lot of false memory with it. And so I was just in limbo. And eventually the way I kind of deal with it now is I accept it so that I'm not fighting it, but I intellectually know that most of it is probably just false memory. But yeah, this whole other life just got woven, and he started with experiences from when I was 5, all through my childhood, my adolescence, my adult life, all through the years. So it's kind of like woven through my whole life, this kind of world.
And these hypnosis sessions, they were done by international telephone call, correct?
They were done by phone. I was alone in my apartment. Now that I know what can happen, I mean, it's just horrifying. But yeah, I mean, he was in the US. I was thousands of miles away.
Yeah, and you had no support system for
No,
after the call.
no, he
Right.
was the support system. Yeah. I mean, there were people in my life that, I could go to if something really bad happened, but he was my support person in regard to that part of the hypnosis part of my life. Yeah.
Yeah, along those lines, I think it bears mention that one of the things that um, researchers were discovering about this group of Hopkins, Jacobs, and their surrounding associates, um, and these researchers included Carol Rainey and Jeff Ritzmann and a number of
Yeah.
us, and one of the things I thought was important when I began finding out the material Emma was sharing with me and was substantiated and verifiable material was that there was an entire entourage of people around David Jacobs. And as she described Elizabeth, and part of the method of operation was to make them increasingly reliant upon the hypnotist for that emotional and moral support with techniques such as you can't tell anybody you work with, they don't understand. You can't go to the police, they don't understand. You can't tell your psychologist, they'll have you thrown, they'll throw a net over you. And so let's just clarify that, Emma. At any point in your interactions with him where sexual molestation was repeatedly discussed, did he at any point suggest a trauma center, a rape counselor, anything like that?
No. In fact, he actually said exactly what you said. He advised me to be very careful who I told. Yeah. He said, that people can get very bad repercussions. He told me things, people could lose their jobs, people have lost custody of their children. And I mean, I kind of knew that anyway, because, where I live, if I came out, I would very quickly be socially ostracized. So I knew anyway that I needed to stay quiet, but he really didn't reinforce that. Yeah.
Okay, well, Emma shared over the years, really, has shared with a number of researchers and me various audio clips, and she and I exchanged emails about them some more this week, and I shared some of those with Erica, and the clip labeled number one, Erica, is one that Emma explained to me, and if you would summarize it, please, Emma, kind of demonstrates Jacobs's attempt to put you kind of servant to the alleged hybrids. Is that correct?
Yeah. It's actually one of the clips that really gets to me the most, and it's not the worst by any means, but it's the one that really gets me because it's so clear that he knows I haven't said anything to him, and he's deliberately telling me what I should remember. And it's, not a nice thing that he's telling me to remember. He's sort of setting me up for the in the narrative. So yeah.
And we will play that. And I just wanted to just make a comment, a statement. This is disturbing content, and so if there are younger people listening, please, this is a great time to turn this off, because there is adult content that we will be addressing. And so I just wanted to say that. And then, Jack, let me ask you, because I'm hoping that I did things correctly in StreamYard, but is the first clip that you want to play Hypnosis Session 12, Alien Threats, or would it be number one, Sexual Feelings?
I don't have the names of the
Okay.
clips.
I think it's Session 8, Hybrid Control, would it be?
Okay, I'm just looking, and they were not. Okay, hybrids. There's hybrid sex, and I'm sorry the way this gets put in there, but I'm just let me play a clip, and then we can talk about it after, and hopefully
Sure.
we will be
Sure.
on the right page. I tried to do this in order, but it is me doing this. So there you go. So we will play this clip, and then talk about it after. Thank you again for being so open with this. So here is a clip with Emma Woods and Dr. David Jacobs.
One time a woman was told, saw an image of her son being pushed into an oncoming truck on the street.
Oh, God.
And it scared her to death. And she thought they were going to kill her son, etc. Well, she came to me for another 6 years. She was actually here Monday for our 43rd session, although the last session we had was 18 months ago and the previous one was 5 years ago. But she's still, I mean, this survey was made in 1994 or 1995.
God.
So they just don't, they threaten and they scare the hell out of people, but we haven't actually ever seen them carrying out a threat. One time a woman was told, saw an image of her son being pushed into an oncoming truck on the street.
Oh, God.
And it scared her to death. And she thought they were going to kill her son, etc. Well, she came to me for another 6 years. She was actually here Monday for our 43rd session, although the last session we had was 18 months ago and the previous one was 5 years ago. But she's still, I mean, this survey was made in 1994 or 1995.
God.
So they just don't, they threaten and they scare the hell out of people, but we haven't actually ever seen them carrying out a threat. One time a woman.
I apologize. I have not imported audio into this, and so can you, Emma? Can you just describe what was happening in this particular session?
Yeah, that one, I think he's telling me about Alison Reed, who's Brian Reed's mother, who is the other one of the woman that he's done a lot of hypnosis with. He was basically just telling me that the hybrids were threatening her and saying that they would kill her son, Brian, by pushing him in front of a truck and so on and so forth. So he's basically just sort of helping, to put in place the narrative that the hybrids are threatening, that they don't want us to talk to Jacobs, that Jacobs was in a big threat to them, which is what he always used to tell us. And yeah, it was just him sort of building the narrative while I was under hypnosis. So he told me lots and lots of things that other research that had happened to other research subjects, which is a form of leading, and it's also making sure that we remember similar things, and then he can go in public and in his books and say that we are all remembering the same thing and we don't know what the other one is remembering, and it's a complete blatant lie, because he constantly told us what we were remembering. He even had Brian Reed transcribe some of my hypnosis sessions, and Elizabeth Smith, he sent her 20 of my hypnosis sessions to transcribe, although I don't think she did, but and Alison Reed was transcribing some of my sessions. So he completely, when he says that we didn't know what the other one was saying, it's just absolutely untrue. And this is an example of it. He's sharing stuff he wants me to remember, I think.
Wow, it's mind-blowing and disturbing on multiple levels. And so I'm going to play the next tape, the audio that I imported, and this is Hypnosis Session 12, Aliens. We will talk about this when we get done playing this. So anyway, thank you for your patience, and let's play this audio clip.
There's always this inequitable situation them, how you're not helping them, how you're going against their orders, how you're obeying their orders, how you're doing this they don't like, you're doing that they do like. But it's all from their perspective. They have, no concern with disrupting your life, with, making you kind of have this life of unusual events that sort of overtakes you after a while as you think about it, and God knows how it's affected relationships that you've had over your life, and none of that matters. Nothing matters other than them.
Yeah.
It's completely selfish. There's no reciprocity whatsoever. Even this little event today, there's just, it's all trying to get you to do something. There's all stick and no carrot. There's always this inequitable situation. It's all about them. It's never about you. It's all about them. How you can help them, how you're not helping them, how you're going against their orders, how you're obeying their orders, how you're doing this they don't like, you're doing that they do like. But it's all from their perspective. They have, no concern with disrupting your life, with, making you kind of have this life of unusual events that sort of overtakes you after a while as you think about it, and God knows how it's affected relationships that you've had over your life,
And so, and I'm sorry, as you're listening to this, I'm sure that this brings up so many feelings about what you went through, but as I think all of us are listening to this is really disturbing on many, many levels. And so I have to ask you, was he, how was Temple University involved with this, and was he calling from the university, and give us information about that, please.
Yeah. Well, when he offered to hypnotize me, he sent me a research consent form that cited Temple University, that said that I would be participating in scholarly research. And there was, he said, on the form it said if I wanted more information about my rights, I could phone the Temple University Vice Provost for research, and he had the phone number and everything, and I didn't because I trusted it. And he had a bio on his website, which is still there, where he's a Temple professor, and he's sort of presents himself as very competent and above board and credible, because Temple University was, I thought, I would have thought that they would have stopped him if he wasn't credible. I just assumed that it was all okay. And they do know, they did know what he was doing, and he taught a course at Temple, accredited course on UFOs, and he had his books as his publications, and one of his books was a textbook for his course. He had a special deal with a publisher that they would publish a certain amount of the threat every year for his students at Temple to buy, because it was a text for his course. And I actually, the New York Times a long time ago did a story on it, and they said that, and they interviewed the head of the history department at Temple University, and they quoted him in the article, and he was saying, that he supported Jacobs's research, it was an important body of work, and that he was going to put him forward for a promotion to full professor based on this work. And apparently there was some discontent in the history department about his work, but then people were reluctant to say anything because they wanted academic freedom. But anyway, his they knew what he was doing, and it was part of Temple, and it was part of his course and his so on and so forth. And then when I filed a complaint with them, they tried to say that it was nothing to do with them. The research consent form was unauthorized by them. And this is even though the Richard Throm, who was the head of the Institutional Review Board at Temple, who's in charge of making sure that human subject research is done properly, he told me himself that he had lots of conversations with Jacobs about his work. And Richard Throm was assuring me that he knew a lot about anomalous experiences from talking to Jacobs, so he wasn't going to be prejudiced to me. So, I mean, they were fully aware of what he was doing, but the moment I filed a complaint, it was like they tried to disavow Jacobs, say it was nothing, it was just a private thing that he was doing, it was nothing to do with the university. And then they didn't investigate it. They sent me a letter saying they'd investigated it, and obviously hadn't, because they hadn't asked for any of my evidence. They hadn't spoken to me. They just basically, in my view, just covered it up. And then I went to the Office of Human Research Protections, the OHRP, who oversee the Temple IRB, and filed a complaint with them. And at that point, Temple then completely changed course. And instead of saying that they'd investigated it, they then said to the OHRP they couldn't investigate it because he wasn't doing research. And the OHRP can only oversee research, so that the oral history is exempt. It's not counted as research. So then Temple University made a case to the OHRP that Jacobs was actually doing oral history, not research, and that meant that the OHRP couldn't investigate them, and the OHRP accepted that characterization of his work, so they couldn't investigate Temple. But the head of the OHRP, she said to me that she was concerned about it and she would ask Temple to investigate it voluntarily. And then Temple then came back to me and said they couldn't investigate it because he wasn't doing research, and basically it was nothing to do with them. So they basically just, in my view, just completely covered it up.
Wow. That is absolutely mind-blowing. And Jack, go ahead.
Yeah, if I may, Erica, I'd like to comment on that too. I think that's an important part of the story, is that you hear this kind of stuff and people always go, did you file a complaint? Did you this? Did you that? Yes, Emma filed complaints with Temple University, and they kind of gave her the runaround, and the university didn't want to take responsibility for the circumstances. And Emma also filed a complaint with the Office of Human Research Protections, which is a United States government agency, the OHRP. And they contacted Temple. And so then it was Temple's position, as I understand it, that David Jacobs was not conducting research. He was only collecting oral histories. And that is contradicted by the facts. He collected material for investigative purposes, ostensibly, on a number of occasions. And interestingly enough, Emma and my paths crossed with Doug Messner, who people may recognize as Lucian Greaves of the Satanic Temple these days, because he was interested in the satanic panic of the 1990s and the way hypnosis was misused to make false accusations of people. And Mr. Messner helped facilitate an article published by the False Memory Syndrome Foundation that pointed out that runaround, and that David Jacobs had denied, or Temple had denied, David Jacobs was conducting research or collecting materials and that kind of thing, when, of course, that's obviously not the case.
Wow. And I want to just say that these are all important things. These are this is I want to just thank everybody in chat for stressing that this is an important show tonight. And again, thank you, Emma, for coming forward and being so vulnerable with the things that happen to you. This is so important for people getting into this subject, to make sure that they are cognizant of some of the people that are out there and are using their connections in academia or in any place. And I see this with so many people that are coming out, and I want to just say this because it's important. So many people who are coming out who are businessmen who have a lot of money behind them. And thank you, Scott, for the super sticker. People that can build these cult-like followings, and then people that are around them do not ask questions, don't hold them to high standards, and don't hold them accountable. And that is just simply wrong, especially in a subject like this where people are so vulnerable. And so I just thank you so much for doing this. And I want to go on to the next clip. And again, thank you for humoring me with the way that I'm playing these tonight. I thought I'd gotten them in order, but there is one called Hypnosis Session 1, Sexual Feelings. And so let me just play this, and then we'll weigh in after we play the clip.
He's continuing to stare in there, and he's... Do you get any sense of your own emotions changing, or...
I just feel very close to them.
Very, what?
Close.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow.
Okay.
They're not like, not like something like my husband or my mother or something like that, but just very close. Somehow.
I see. Some people say that when he does this, they can even get a sense of an emotional component, which might even be sexual in nature.
Yeah.
Does that resonate with you, or not?
Maybe on an emotional level. I'm not sure.
Okay.
No.
But not on a just straight sort of visceral level, then?
No. Maybe that's because that would be quite compatible with how I am, actually.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, do these feelings of closeness with him, do they become more intense, or they just sort of stay the same? Or
I
they
think
diminish?
They do. I think they do.
Mm-hmm. Okay. You mean they become more intense?
Yeah.
Okay. He's continuing to stare in there, and he's... Do you get any sense of your own emotions changing, or...
I just feel very close to them.
Very, what?
Close.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow.
Okay.
They're not like, not like something like my husband or my mother or something like that, but just very close. Somehow.
I see. Some people say that when he does this, they can even get a sense of an emotional component, which might even be sexual in nature.
Yeah.
Does that resonate with you, or not?
Okay, so I'm just going to say that I think that I'm taken aback by this, and realizing predation that we are hearing here. And wow. And so, Emma, tell us, please describe a little bit about this this session.
Yeah, he's basically leading me to remember sort of sexual memories that he wants in his book, I think. I don't think he believes, my own opinion is that he doesn't believe any of it. So I think he's doing it for his book, but I also do wonder whether he gets a sort of a personal kick out of it as well. So I think there might be a bit of both of those things happening, that it sort of gives him some personal satisfaction, but he's also getting the material that he wants for his book. And it's just blatant leading. I mean, the man understands that if you say things to people when they're hypnotized that you're leading them, they're going to remember those sorts of things. And he's talked about it and he's written about it. He knows what he's doing. He also has all his hypnosis sessions transcribed and he reads them. He told me that. So even if some strange, way he didn't realize in the moment, he would realize when he read it. So it's just deliberate leading. Yeah. And very typical of what he did.
Wow. Yeah, it's amazing. Thank you, Jack. Go ahead.
Thank you, Erica. So, post 2004, I'm aware Emma could give us hours and hours and hours and hours of this kind of material. Correct, Emma?
Yeah. Nearly 200 hours.
Yeah, and like, of these dozens of sessions, how long did they last?
They were an average of 5 hours. Some of them were less, some of them were more. I think the longest ones were 6 hours or a bit over 6 hours. They're a long session.
Excuse me, I just have to say, not to be confused with brainwashing. Okay,
Yeah.
and so this went on for a few years, couple of years, and the sexual content became heavier and heavier. And a point I'd like to make, please, is when we listen to this, it is off-putting, to be polite. One of the things I think is important, though, is David Jacobs on his website claims to be an advocate of scientific research. We don't have to understand his motive or what he was trying to accomplish in order to identify this is in no way, shape, or form scientific research. It's hypnosis is not recognized as a scientific tool for memory retrieval. The way it was conducted is questionable at best. He's not qualified to conduct it, and we could just go down a checklist of reasons this is not scientific study. So, in the way, Emma, you were saying, it was just blatant leading. It is blatant pseudoscience, and that's giving him a favorable review. And I just think it's important to point that out, because I've watched the things Emma and Carol Rainey and others were attacked about, and the detractors and the critics would try to turn this to a moral argument, or an argument about who decides about one type of behavior or another. And it doesn't have to be that argument. It can just be that it is indefensible from a research perspective, as well as the ethics are non-existent. It's just a complete breach of ethics in any way, shape, or form if some type of scientific research were purportedly being conducted.
Absolutely. And I want to just throw this in there because this is so relevant to what we're seeing in the UFO quote unquote community. Now we see, as we've seen for many years, we see people who are being approached to, do MRI studies, to do, join this group of people who, are allegedly doing research. And it's like, again, nothing ever comes to fruition, but a lot of people who think they've had paranormal experiences they're being led by them. Lord knows what type of information they are giving to these people who are not doing credible research and have nothing to show for it. And that, to me is just really, really, really disturbing for sure. And I want to just read a little universal principle. I'm sure we know what side you're on. This show is providing more leading the narrative evidence than what I heard in the evidence against Jacob. So clearly we know that, we've got to have one of those people in the audience, but we've got a majority, 99% of the people in the audience are actually smart enough to understand that there is something really important to this. And so I just really, yes, this is wonderful. So let me just go to, we're going to try to play a few more, which I do not see that, and I'm sorry, half the names are cut off. So I'm just going to play another clip here really quickly. And this is the hypnosis session 18 about Hopkins. And so let me just play this really quickly, and then we will try to get the segment that we want to play. So here you go, you guys. Maybe roll this.
Neither Bud nor I have ever accepted any money over the years, although every once in a while a benefactor will give him some money personally, but we don't accept any money from abductees, ever, never have. But and what that does is it keeps people who've had abduction experiences from having too much expectations because money has changed hands.
Yeah.
They want their money's worth, you know what I mean? And it keeps us from getting sued for something or other. In the United States, it's a very litigious society. People are always litigating because there's no money that's changing hands, and everybody knows that I'm just some guy off the street. I'm just a rank amateur, and they all know that, and they sign the forms that you signed and all that, you know. And that has been a happy arrangement for me over the years.
Yeah, makes sense.
So. Neither Bud nor I have ever accepted any money over.
So that's a great comment in and of itself. And so, Jack, I'm going to ask you really quickly because I don't have the session that you were talking about in here, but I would like you to, if you can pull that up, and then if you can do a share screen on your computer, and then we can play that, and perhaps Mario can help us with that too behind the scenes. But Emma, talk a little bit while Jack is doing that. Talk a little bit about what just describe that clip, please.
Yeah, he was basically, I think, looking back, it's basically he can't be sued because he doesn't charge money. It's basically the crux of what he was saying to me. But he was, I think he was sort of saying to me that he and Bud, they don't charge for hypnotizing people. And the reason they don't charge is so that they can't get sued because money hasn't changed hands. It's an odd thing to say to me. Why would he say it? Why did he bring it up? Why say it to me? And I kind of wonder whether there's a bit of he has had problems with people in the past who are not happy with what he did, and maybe he was maybe that's what he says to you, so that you have it in your brain that, oh, I can't really do anything because he's not charging, or who knows why he said it, but that's pretty much what that was.
Okay, thank you. And we're going to try to add Jack to the stream to have him play the particular clip that we're looking for. So thank you, Jack, for doing that. If you can.
I will try.
You know, years ago, maybe I told you this, I had this idea of buying the person I was working with a chastity belt.
Yeah.
Maybe this would be the time to get one. They can't take it off. It's got a little lock and a key. And right where the vaginal opening is, it's got a couple of nails sticking across. It's a dead stopper, no doubt about it. They actually have them. I found them online. I started. This woman was having all this trouble. This was many years ago. And I thought, God, what we need is just a blockage here. Now you can't wear it all the time, obviously, and this and that, but it has its place in a sense. I mean, you can, and it does work with a key.
Right.
And of course, if you were to put the key somewhere where they can't get at it, and you can prevent them from, I mean, they can always just kind of tell you, to get the key, but it does sort of throw a kink into their plans.
Yeah.
It's not like you're totally accessible at all times. It makes them work a little harder.
Yeah.
And it would probably piss them off. That's possible.
Yeah.
But it's something to think about. I can get one of these things online, I think.
Yeah.
I remember seeing some, they had some, maybe they still have in Philadelphia. This was so many years ago, I don't even know. They have these sex shops, And I went into one that specialized in bondage dominance.
Oh, yeah.
Place that I frequented quite often. And I was looking for the one thing, I was looking for chastity belts, and they had all these dungeon type whips and chains and this and all this, and here was they had a chastity belt in there.
Oh, yeah.
So that's something.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, with a like that.
It might be worth a try. I mean, because what he's saying is, there's lots of us that can come around, and what he's saying is we can just use you anytime we want.
That's what he was saying. It was really hard for me to get in my head the words for it, because it was all like, he wasn't saying it, he was conveying it, but it was like that.
Yeah. So anyway, that's something. It'll get them all fired up. It'll get them all angry and this and that. But at the same time, it'll give you a chance to fight back a little bit. I'll look into it and see what I can find. So, I mean, I can send it to you if you don't want it. You don't have to use it and send it back.
Yeah.
I don't even know. I don't even know what to say.
Do you want to say anything, Emma?
Yeah, it was just, I mean, it's just outrageous. I mean, there's no other word for it. I mean, it's not helping me. It's not doing research. It's probably not even something that he would have put in his book. It's just pure self-gratification on his part, I think. Just appalling. And yeah, I mean, in my opinion, the man is a predator. I mean, that is just an example of it. He got something out of it. And he didn't just do the chastity belt thing with me. I mean, he's admitted that he did it with somebody else. It's ridiculous. It's awful. It's just, yeah. I mean, it's one of the things I had no memory of. so I couldn't include it in my complaint to Temple. It's something that I just discovered when I listened to the tapes. He did so many things that were just beyond words, really. Yeah. So yeah.
I share your perspective that dozens of hypnosis sessions spanning years, and he admittedly has hundreds of other um, research subjects he's worked with. There's an extremely good likelihood this is not an isolated method of operation by any means. I wanted to ask you a question I have now that I didn't have 10 years ago when we first started interacting about this. I see people on social media that I think intend to be supportive of you, that will attack him, and when we don't know Emma, like they're just people that we read about in a book or we see on YouTube or something. They're just kind of public figures, and sometimes I see people make fun of Jacobs, and they'll be profane, or they'll be vulgar or whatever about things he said to you. How do you feel about that? Like when you see it being comical content, or even when people are meaning to be criticizing him, but you see it put in the form of jokes. How do you feel about that?
It doesn't really bother me because I understand that it's going to be less personal for them. The closer you are, the more kind of disturbing it is. But I'm grateful that they do at least see that it's not okay, that it's wrong. So it doesn't really bother me. But yeah, I mean, it does cause a lot of hurt. Like I was really hurt by what happened with Jacobs. And Brian Reed told me that he was also really hurt by what happened with him. And I believe that Elizabeth was as well. So yeah, it's so outrageous that it kind of is comedy in a way, is kind of natural because it's kind of comic in a way. Some of the things he did, they're just laughable. But of course, they are also hurtful, and damaging and harmful. So yeah, I understand it. It doesn't, I'm not offended by it, and I'm grateful that some people, people do see that it was wrong. But yeah, I mean, you can't underestimate the damage that he has done to people. And I think, Jack, you're absolutely right. I'm sure this is his method of operation. I'm sure it's not just, it's not just me, Elizabeth, and Alison. It will be a lot of other people as well, and Brian. Yeah.
Yeah, that is, and thanks for circling back to that. That was one of my initial interests in your case. Was as I have mentioned, there were researchers that I was kind of piggybacking on: Jeremy Vaeni, Jeff Ritzmann, Carol Rainey. Tyler Coke-John took an interest in it and did a good job. Dr. Tyler Coke-John, a number of people. And I had been, by that point in time, investigating the work, or, activities, masquerading as work, of John Carpenter with MUFON and Bud Hopkins and some others. And it was becoming increasingly apparent to me that this was a method of operation among these people, and that it was an activity, hypnosis, regressive hypnosis, that had long been rejected by the scientific community as a memory retrieval tool, but the UFO gang would not accept that. They continue to cling to it as a means to, as if a person knows how to do it right, they won't cause harm in an individual, or they'll only get the true memories. And that has been shown repeatedly in scientific clinical trials by qualified professionals like Elizabeth Loftus and Dr. Julia Shaw, that the very things we're listening to here and the very things Emma describes are the way you induce false memories. It like if we're like putting on a clinic of how to induce false memories. And there did seem to be a group of men as well that were using these activities as a means to interact with women, to have misogynistic tendencies, to arguably take advantage of women. Along with the help of Leah Haley, I documented the Carpenter affair quite extensively, and with the help of a couple of other researchers. And John Carpenter married two of his hypnosis subjects. So, I mean, that certainly wouldn't suggest that they were isolated incidents. And again, I just appreciate you being here, Emma. I feel a certain commitment to those researchers, Jeff, Jeremy, Carol, Dr. Coke John, you certainly, Emma, and the community at large, to continue addressing this periodically.
Yeah, no, thank you. I really appreciate that. Yeah.
And I want to just say that this is the heaviest show that I have ever done, and having gone through what I've gone through in the world of UFOs, with people wrapped up in specific packages and bows and presenting themselves to be anything than what they are, but being predators. This is really, I can't stress this enough. This is really important, and anyone who wants to dive into this subject, don't take it lightly, and really make sure you hold your experiences close to the vest. I want to say, somebody brought up this point in chat, where are all of these, who is behind this? You've got people that are connected with, say, Robert Bigelow. You've got Bigelow buying databases. You've got people who, and I've got such a wonderful archive here, but when you look at some of the abduction surveys that have been done over the decades, and then you wonder, to what ends are these, is this being done? Is this an end? Are people just being manipulated? Where are the boundaries or the breaks, and who is looking at this to make sure things are done ethically and people like this are not being hurt? This is just this is an important conversation, and thanks, Adam, for that nice comment. But Emma, thank you for again, your bravery. And I'm sitting here and I'm listening to you, and I'm trying not to, I'm trying to stay composed, because there is when you're victimized by people like this, it is a really horrible feeling, and you feel so isolated. And so this is just mind-blowing and an important conversation. So thank you. And
thank you.
Wow. And Jack, and so do you have another clip that you wanted?
I do. Let's see if I can do that share screen magic again.
And while you're doing that, I just wanted to say again, thank you. I mean, all of your comments. Amy Collins wants to thank you for being on the show. 11, thank you for sharing And all the best to you, and incredible conversations. And Adam Kehoe, thanks for having this conversation. And it is a tough conversation that brings up a lot of emotion for all of us listening, and anybody who's out there in the audience who has had a similar circumstance. Please make sure that you reach out to me, and you can find Emma as well. This is important. So anyway, we're going to share this with Jack. Jack will.
Yeah, I
Magic.
appreciate everyone being here too. And here is another clip.
I'm going to count from 5 to 1 and just remember now. My diagnosis is that this is multiple personality disorder and you should take medication for it. I've seen lots of cases of MPD and this absolutely fits the MPD profile. And my professional diagnosis, therefore, is multiple personality disorder. I am studying it. I am writing a book about it. That is my next book. I feel that the whole sort of alien business is all a matter of multiple personality disorder. It's a much more widespread phenomenon than people think. Lots of people are walking around with it. It's a public health problem. And that you are unfortunately suffering from it. And my opinion is that yours is a classic case. And that the only thing that will help you will be medication. Your stories, I'm only interested in the fact that you tell those stories, because multiple personalities are all different. And as you know, that each individual with multiple personality disorder comes out. And I think we've been dealing with 3 or 4 personalities here. Yours is, in fact, multiple personality disorder. And when people want to talk to you about your contact with me, that is the first thing you tell them. I have decided it is all multiple personality disorder, and that's what I'm going to be talking about. A psychiatric condition, multiple personality disorder, well known in the world. And you think I may be wrong, but I think that I'm right. And that's what it is. And this is what it is, and this is where my studies are leading. My studies are going directly to multiple personality disorder. And that's all there is to it. So now I'll count from 5 to 1 and bring you out of this. And we'll talk about MPD a little bit more. 5, kind of coming out of this.
We now get into some incredibly convoluted storylines. Do you want to take a swing at it, Emma, and then I'll follow you?
Well, Jacob's something had happened with Elizabeth, the hypnosis that Jacobs was having with Elizabeth. And it ended up in a situation where Elizabeth was supposedly helping hybrids to integrate into human society, and it had to be very secret. And they were furious that she was being hypnotized by Jacobs and telling Jacobs all about this. And then Jacobs was having one of his instant messaging conversations that he had with Elizabeth every night. And basically the hybrid came and took over. So then he was having a conversation with the hybrid on instant messaging. And he didn't want the hybrid to know that he knew all about their program, because then they would come after him. So he pretended that he was a female expert in MPD called Aloha Norton. And then the hybrid, I don't know whether they bought it or not. But anyway, he told me about this. And then I had a hypnosis session immediately. My next hypnosis session, he then put hypnotic suggestions in my mind that I had MPD. And I didn't know he was going to do that. He didn't ask me if he could do that. He didn't tell me he was going to do it. And then later with the amnesia blocks, I didn't even know that he'd done it. And then when I listened to the tapes, I heard it, I almost died. And this is the clip that actually made me decide that I was going to make this really widely known, because it just shocked me so much. But yeah, he had absolutely no regard for my mental health, no regard for my welfare. I was just a guinea pig of his, that he was doing whatever he wanted to further his narrative, which I don't think he even believed for some reason, whether it was for his book or whether it was for some sort of sadistic purposes or a kind of a game that he got enjoyment out of. I don't know what he was doing, but yeah, he did that to me, and I'm pretty sure he would have done the same to Elizabeth. And I, even today, still on some level feel like I've got MPD and I'm ashamed of it. I don't act as though I have MPD, and I know that I don't have it, but I have this sort of slightly shameful underlying feeling at times that I'm aware of that I have got MPD, and it's like my secret that, yeah. So it's an unbelievable thing to do to anybody. And I think it just shows the length that he was prepared to go to. He has absolutely no regard for his subjects' welfare at all. We're just things to be used in whichever way he wants. That's how I see it.
Thank you, and I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. People should understand that David Jacobs presented this narrative to his entourage and his closer circles, that the hybrids were upset that they were being discovered. And so it was very important that Emma and Elizabeth protect David Jacobs from these hybrids, because they wanted to kill him to keep the big evil plot of taking over the Earth secret. And so he had you writing emails in code, Emma?
Yeah, he had us writing emails in code, me and Elizabeth. He also asked me to delete all my emails. I mean, looking back, I kind of wonder whether he was starting to get a bit worried and wanted to erase evidence. Like, he used to send me the tapes of my hypnosis sessions, and at some point he started to remove the hypnotic induction at the beginning. So, I mean, there were obviously hypnosis sessions, but he was like removing the absolute evidence of that. He asked me to delete all my emails, and I did. I printed them out before I deleted them, and he was furious about that. But he said the hybrids might read it. So I deleted my emails. And then we were writing emails in code. And then he wanted us to use different names when addressing him, like Dr. Jacobson or Lucille Scott and things like that. And by that stage, I was realizing that things were going off the rails. It was during that period when I was starting to understand and wake up and sort of learn how to get out of it. But yeah, looking back, I actually wonder whether there was also a little bit of him trying to cover his tracks. Yeah.
If I can plaster my laptop all over the screen one more time, Erica, I have one more clip for us.
Okay, thank you.
Emma has been talking about the memory blocks, and that it's important for the for the hybrids not to know what what uh, what David Jacobs is up to. And so one of the things he would do, ostensibly to keep their work secret because they can read her mind, is by any other name induce amnesia during these hypnosis sessions. And here is a clip that Emma shared with me to that effect.
I want you to become very, very relaxed. Now, this is a session that I want you to be able to just put into a corner of your mind instead of a vault-like structure that nobody can get into behind a brick wall that is totally inaccessible to anyone. The vault is shut tight. Your memories are in there. You can access them a little bit when you want in the future. But the point right now is nobody will know that you remembered this. Nobody can get to that part of your mind that is sealed. This is your private part of your mind. No one can access it. If someone tries, even if they try hard, even if they're powerful, it will not matter, because the harder they try, the more they will not be able to access it. The dimmer it gets, the smaller it gets, the tighter it gets. They will not know that you have remembered this. They will not know. You will not allow it. This is your mind. They will not be able to access it. It is too far out of reach for them. Locked in that vault, behind that brick wall. No matter what they do, they will not be able to get to it. You are strong. You will be able to keep it from them. Now I'll bring you out of this again. 5. Coming out of this.
Oral history collection at its finest, huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
And Emma, I want to just say I am so grateful that you actually had the foresight to record all of this and to keep that documentation, because this is so important. And I think this is what a lot of abusers don't think that victims, people who've been preyed upon, will do. And I think this is an important piece to sharing motivations and to sharing the protocols that they're using to indoctrinate, to handle victims, and to prey upon them. It's just absolutely mind blowing. And thank you for again, I've said this, but thank you for being so brave. I'm listening to these things and I'm being triggered. And so I can only imagine if there are other people out there that are listening to this show that are having those experiences, or feeling this way. Make sure you please reach out to someone. We need people that are serious mental health professionals to deal with this. And I would definitely just do the disclaimer that never, if you've had any sort of experience, please don't turn to anybody in ufology, really, literally. If you go to any of the UFO conferences, I could not think of a person literally that is there that I would recommend sharing and being so candid with now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I should also just mention that it was actually David Jacobs who recorded the sessions. I didn't actually record them myself. And then he sent me the tapes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, it is heavy, and it deserves study. Emma, as one of the things that I saw happen a lot was people that defended Jacobs and Hopkins seem to be defending the narrative, like it seems to be black and white thinking, all or nothing. And on Twitter, even this week, as I have been tweeting and informing people that we were going to be doing this tonight, it's been mostly supportive, but I have seen a occasional defense of Jacobs or an insinuation that there's two sides to a story, things like that. And first of all, there aren't two sides to what we've listened to tonight. Secondly, and that's just it. End of discussion. It's not ethical. It's not scientific. There is nothing of research value to anything we've listened to tonight. Secondly, I felt like that you, and again, I'll say you and Carol Rainey and others got put in a position of you're either with us or you're against us. And it didn't have to be all or nothing. And I think people just get really defensive of their own experiences. And like David Jacobs and Bud Hopkins represented to them that this is real. And I think something really happened to me. And could you talk a little about how you've come to view that, the whole baby in the bathwater analogy?
Yeah, I've been aware of that as well, that there are certain people who what they're hearing is that I'm saying that narrative isn't real and that therefore experiences aren't real, and they're not really thinking it through, because I'm an experiencer and I believe that it is real, and I've written a whole book about my experiences, and Jeremy Vaeni and Jeff Ritzmann are also experiencers, and they had a podcast where they talked about their experiences, and Jeremy's written books on his. So we're not debunkers, we're not sort of mindless skeptics, and we actually think that there is something there that's worth researching and looking at, but that it has to be done properly, and that what Jacobs did particularly, and Hopkins, is not actually uncovering anything. It's not leading us to any understanding of what's going on at all, because it's just blatantly dishonest. And if Jacobs goes out and tells people, well, they're all saying the same thing and they don't know what the other is saying, and therefore this means it's true, it's a blatant lie. So if you want to know more about the experience, what this phenomenon is, or understand it, don't go down that path, because you're just being fed lies. And who knows what the reason is, but you're being fed lies. And then there might be others, possibly Hopkins, I don't know, who may believe what he was doing, but he's still using hypnosis and very, very unethical ways of researching it, and sort of quite semi-dishonest ways, I think. Some of the things that he did, that Carol Rainey documented in her videos, he wasn't particularly honest either in some of the things that he did. And if your researcher that you're following is dishonest, you're not getting anywhere near the truth. You're not understanding anything. And so I think I'm really happy to hear of the project that both of you are starting. I mean, that's what we need. That's exactly what we need. Yeah.
Thank you. You had sent an email to me this week about and you mentioning Carol again reminded me of it, about some of what you feel are the better resources to look at about what happened with you and David Jacobs. Would you describe some of those, please?
Well, I think your book, The Greys Have Been Framed, the 2 chapters that you wrote, I thought they were really good. It gives a really good understanding of it. Jeremy Vaeni wrote a feature article in UFO Mag, again, which was for anybody to sort of understand the whole context of what happened. That was really good. Gary Hayden wrote some articles on his Speculative Realms blog, and I've got those archived on my website. They're very interesting takes that he had when he analysed it. I'm just trying to think. Carol Rainey's article in Paratopia magazine and my article in Paratopia magazine, I talk a lot about what happened with Temple University and the OHRP. People can go to my website, emmawoodsbooks.com, and I've got an archive there of a whole lot of stuff that, if people are interested, that they can access. Jeff Ritzmann did a show on his Paranormal Waypoint podcast, and he had a lot of audio from my conversations with Jacobs and my hypnosis sessions. That's also quite informative. And the Paratopia podcast, they did some shows where they looked at some of my audio or phone conversations that I had with Jacobs. So there's quite a bit of material there for people who are interested.
And I want to just say, you've mentioned Jeff Ritzmann, and I remember getting to know him, way back, and he was such a kind and lovely human being.
Yeah.
And I was so glad for the opportunity I had to get to know him, and I think we were all very saddened by his untimely passing.
Yeah.
And so do you, and I have to ask you this again, because of course we're seeing, all roads are leading back to one specific place. And as we've seen over the decades, the collecting data and doing Lord knows what with that data at the end of the day, what are these groups of people trying to do specifically? Again, Robert Bigelow and Jack, you had mentioned, what had happened with John Carpenter, and then we've got John Mack and some of these people. I mean, Emma, what do you think at the end of the day the motivations are? Is it just a single person that is exploiting this for their own perversion, or do you think that there are a group of people that are doing this for some other nefarious reason?
I don't know a lot about it because it's something I haven't looked into in a great deal, but I sometimes wonder whether there are some people who are trying to collect data, and the fact that Robert Bigelow bought John Carpenter's files. I mean, he paid money for them. I mean, why did he do that? He obviously wants some of the data, whatever that is, or why, we don't know. So, and also I think with Jack's latest book, Wayward Sons, where he really lays out how many people from the intelligence community and the military, or the intelligence community, are active and have been active in the UFO field for so long. And then the obvious question is why? So I don't know enough. I haven't researched enough. I can't sort of give an informed opinion. I know that I would recommend everybody to read Jack's book, Wayward Sons. It gives you pause for thought. So obviously, I do wonder whether there are, people who are investigating the phenomenon or using the phenomenon as a cover for something else they're doing. I don't know, but I do think that there is something there that we're not fully aware, informed about. And I think experiencers have to be really careful. that maybe there will be people who want information about you or from you that maybe you're not really being told the full story about. Yeah.
Thank you. And I think that is absolutely the case. And I think the show tonight, I know the show tonight has highlighted that. And I know that there, like I've mentioned when I opened the show, that there are other people who are coming forward to talk about the ways that they've been manipulated, brought into a fold, manipulated, and not to the depths that you have, Emma, but this is a very common thing, and we just have to be so careful, when we're getting into some of these social media groups, when we're being approached by people, and then we're being, kind of filtered to groups offline, and things. This is dangerous, and there are multiple agendas. Elle, thanks for bringing that up. And I want to say hi to Lisa. It's nice to see you here. And UFO John Doe, thank you for the super sticker tonight. But this just be careful, you guys. This should be an empowering subject. This should be all of us, working together to find out answers about something that is happening, and instead we get thrown into this dark hole where people are preying upon vulnerable people, where people are, really doing grave damage to others. And so this is an important show tonight, Emma. Thank you. I can't even thank you enough for your bravery.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I think what you said is really important. Yeah, no, thank you.
Absolutely. Jack, closing thoughts. We're getting ready to wrap up the show for the evening.
It is disturbing on a number of levels, and it's disturbing why the money trail always kind of seems to come back to the same core group of people. Emma knows that when I was interacting with her several years ago, I was struck by how much the material she was sharing with me was comparable to the work of George Estabrooks and the MK Ultra crew in the mid 20th century. And I found a thing that ufology has is it's easy for conspiracies to fester when it's difficult to believe someone is as incompetent as they are leading you to believe they are. And I definitely had that feeling about David Jacobs. And I continue to work the Freedom of Information Act for contracts that might one day shed more light, grant funding, or the foundations that may have been used as conduits between intelligence agencies and Robert Bigelow and the independent quote unquote researchers that he was funding, as to why they went to the maddening extremes that they did. Just like when Magonia Review took a read of my book, it was their position that like at best David Jacobs is suffering from mental illness. I mean, how else can you describe someone that's writing emails in codes so the hybrids won't know what they mean? And yet I'm also with Emma that I have interviewed him face to face. I've spoken to him face to face. I don't think just my gut shot, I don't think he believes what he says. I just don't think he believes it.
And so, so we're giving a hall pass to people that have, and I'm not, I'm that by mental illness is a very important thing. But was that their way of just kind of saying, well, he's got mental problems, and so we're going to excuse that behavior? Was that
not on behalf of Magonia?
Okay.
But I do understand your point, and I am to the point, Erica, that I'm not going to debate this with people anymore. Um, there's no debate to be had about the actions of David Jacobs and the complete lack of value of these types of lines of research. They don't they're not research, like Emma said, and I don't understand. There is no way to defend this from a credible, rational position. So I don't understand its defense, and I'm not going to debate it any longer.
Thank you. Yeah, no, absolutely. But I think it's so important that it's critical that these conversations are taking place, especially now, especially when there's a younger generation who are they're coming into the subject and they are looking for the bright shiny star like we all do when we get involved or are attracted to this subject, and we can go down a lot of bad rabbit holes. And so this has been a really critical and important conversation for all of us, and I hope people listen to this and share it and subscribe and put the word out, because all of us here, and I know all of the wonderful people in chat have the intellect to understand that there's something going on. This isn't a conspiracy, it's right out there. These are people that are behaving unethically and causing a lot of harm. And so again, I've got Emma, all of these people in chat just saying thank you for your bravery. Carol Rainey, thanks. The subject needs to be kept alive. Thank you all. And Carol, thank you for your work. And I look forward to someday having you on the show as well. I know that we've talked about that, and I look forward to that. And so I want to just say, and I want to read this quote from Lord Ludacris. So, was there really like a boys' club that did this to share their stories and ways to brainwash vulnerable young women? I mean, I think that's a great question, and I think you could look at some of the ways that young women, have gotten into the subject and fallen prey to some of these things. And it's not. I will say that it's not any different when you look at other. You look at the yoga industry, or you look at any politics. You look at any place where you've got people who can become cult-like figures. They can influence and prey upon other more vulnerable people, and or women. And I'm just saying that I'm over it. So this is important. It's nice to see Carol and to have Emma on the show, but we need to be mindful of all of this. And
I would suggest along those lines, Lord Ludacris. There used to be the old timers with me will remember an e-list, a list serve we used to call them, called UFO updates list. If you find that archive, you can find what happened on there when Emma and Carol began emailing and talking about this publicly. And the misogyny was horrendous, like a parody, actually. Like if they were trying to be sarcastic and make fun of misogynists, it was that bad. And the Carol and Emma were banned from the list, not even allowed to defend themselves on it. And that happened at that point in time, the 2007 to 2010 timeframe, 2012. What was popular at that time were podcasts and podcast forums, message boards, and people would post messages and chat and hang out there. And Emma and probably Carol, I know Emma was banned from a number of those as well, because everyone was discussing her story and what was right and what was wrong, and she wasn't allowed to participate in that discussion if it went against the position of the board moderators.
wow, I can see that nothing's changed. But it's changing tonight. It's changing because of this show and other wonderful shows that are out there, younger people that are getting into this and people that have kind of stayed behind the scenes that are now coming forward, because we have a cohesive, supportive group of people that understand this, and we're not going to let these things go. So thank you.
I appreciate you, Emma, again. Erica, I really appreciate you providing a venue. Thank you for your work on the nonprofit, on expanding frontiers research. I'm elated to be part of that. And you do, as you described at the beginning, have a group effort that keeps your show going, and that is a cohesive effort to do credible, valid research, and I look forward to being supportive of that.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to working with you. And Emma, thank you again for being here. And you can go to emmawoodsbooks.com to get Glimpses of Magonia, a memoir of my anomalous experiences. This has been a fascinating and important conversation, as I had mentioned. And Emma, I hope that at some point in time, it would be fun to have you on the show and have Carol on the show as well. So that I'm just putting that out there, but someday if we could do that, I think that would be important to a lot of women that have been in this subject, that are in this subject, and to a younger generation of women who want to get into this and need to have the information and the wherewithal to do that where they won't be hurt. So thank you, Emma.
Thank you to both of you. I really, really appreciate it, and really looking forward to your project. It's just wonderful news. Yeah.
We are too. It'll be fun. So thank you, everybody, for being in here tonight. I think you guys are wonderful, and thanks UFO John Doe and all Tracy and everyone. Lisa Davis, thanks for being in here. Debbie L, all of you. Cloudy with the Chance of UFOs. Thank you guys. Lord Ludacris. Matthew Riot. I could go on, but thank you for your contributions. Thank you for supporting the show. And this is great. Have a wonderful and safe weekend, all of you. And you can go to ufoclassified.com. You can find me on Facebook or Twitter, maybe. But we can definitely go to expandingfrontiersresearch.org. We'll be putting more information out about our new project. If you are somebody who has been researching this subject and you don't know what to do with your files, because sometimes they take up a lot of space and it's overwhelming to actually think about scanning all of them and preserving them, please reach out to me or reach out to Jack, because we are doing this and we have a wonderful place here that we are going to be working on. It's actually, we've got the bones. It is here for the public to come see, and we will continue taking research and holding it close to our hearts, because I care about every person that has taken the time to study the subject, and I want to make sure that's shared with other people. So thank you all tonight for being here, and we will catch you next week. Next week's show, of course, might be about a certain ranch somewhere and some new goings-ons, shocking but true. But again, this plays back into the way that we are definitely manipulated in the subject, and how we need to make sure that we are doing our due diligence and not getting caught up with stories because they seem to be too good to be true, and somebody's reaching out to us and they're nice, and so we might want to pretend like their research is actually good. So anyway, on that note, I'm Erica Lukes. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you, Jack. Thank you, Emma. Thank all of you, and you guys take care.